Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk 3.0. Our guests tonight are some of the most brilliant minds in blockchain, crypto, metaverse, and Web3. With us now, our guest, Jonscott Turco, who is an established change maker for global businesses and the founder of HumanX. Welcome, Jonscott, and thank you for joining us here today at Let's Talk 3.0.
Good to be here.
So please tell us, as a specialist in cultural and leadership behavior, and someone who supports business leaders globally in creating courageous cultures and innovations, do you really think that we need the metaverse in our lives, and why?
It's interesting. Thank you for the question. Do we need it? It's happening. Whether we need it or we determine that it's something that's important to us right now. The analogy I give oftentimes to clients these days is, you don't have to believe in it or understand it fully. So you don't have to believe it's raining to walk outside and get wet if it's raining. So I tell my clients now, you need to pay attention to this because it's going to impact your business in all levels. Your supply chain operations, your strategy is going to shift. It has to shift. Your teams, all aspects, how you market, how you reach your customers, it's all going to shift. And I always also like to say Jack Welch's simple quote, which is when the pace of change outside is greater than the pace of change inside, the end is near. So yes, I think it's something to pay attention to. It's something to take very seriously, because if you don't, your competitors will. And if you don't, Web3 native organizations that are starting a day, hundreds and hundreds a day, will take your customers and your business. So yeah, it's important.
Do you see that happening in the coming future, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Do you have a time frame in your opinion?
I hate to seem like I keep going backwards to look forwards, but I think we have to pay attention to history so that we can learn from it. And when we look back, I can tell you personally, I was at a meeting in 1994 at my company, which I went to work in after graduate school, and we had a huge meeting, and the topic was if. The key word was if. If we were going to get this internet, we weren't sure. We weren't really sure if we needed it. Do we need it? Was it going to be important? So sometimes when I deal with clients who are very, very kind of oppositional to considering the impacts of these, I send them a 2-minute long video from YouTube, which I highly recommend the audience take a look at, which is Bill Gates on David Letterman explaining the internet in 1994. And Letterman's making jokes about, you listen to a baseball game. And he's like, yeah, you can listen to a baseball game, you can record it. And Letterman said, did you ever hear of a radio or a tape recorder? And so for us now, that seems hilarious. I'm certain in 5 years from now, in 2027, 8, that we'll look back on this time as a critical time that made or broke organizations existing right now. I think we are experiencing, interacting with, and customers of organizations that will not heed what's happening, and they will go the way of Nokia, of Kodak. They will go that way. We are interacting with brands every day that are in a precarious spot if they don't pay attention to this, in my opinion.
So if we want to be part of that trend as individuals, let's say, if I don't want to talk about companies, why would I create an avatar for myself? Do I want to live that experience now? Do I want to see how it evolves through time and then start thinking, okay, as an individual, I would like to actually have the experience? Or would you actually recommend to most of our audiences to actually go and check and live that experience right now?
Great question. There's so many things I have to say about this, but I'll say this. If we look at, and we can talk about many things in this format, right? And I've been an instructor in universities for more than 25 years. And I tell my students this: when you are starting out, let's say we're here, and someone deviates, right? There's a short gap, right? This small gap, if you're watching. When I have clients and friends who've said to me in the past week, literally, well, you know what? We're going to wait and see what happens. So here's what's happening, right? You're waiting, you're doing this, you're on a vertical line. Someone's deviating to the right or whatever direction, and they're accelerating change and adaptation and agility this way. By the time you realize they are so far in a better direction and course correct, they're gone. So from a business, it's clear. From a personal perspective, you're going to play catch up, right? You're going to try to figure out what it is. There's so many things happening with avatars in the metaverse right now. I've seen statistics, and I can see it happening already, where they said I've seen statistics from 10 to 15% or more of your clothing budget is going to be spent on your avatar in the metaverse, which I think is amazing. And I can see it happening. I have several companies I work with that it will be impacting that space specifically, but I've seen it on Zoom calls, on meetings up in spatial we have with the Metashapers group and my friend Sharat Argawal's teams. So we talk about all this now, but I've seen, I was on an interview recently and the woman had earrings on. And then halfway through the interview, she kind of clicked something and the earrings changed. And I was like, wait, it's happening. And it's becoming its own business where you have digital, the digital product and the physical product at the same time. So there's companies now that are driving these changes. Kyosar's Metamall Group is driving these changes. The Musician team is driving these changes from a musical perspective and how we interact with music. So all of these things are very, very critical, and it's impacting us, how we live, what we listen to, what we drive, how we experience it. If I told you 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that we wouldn't have to travel to see each other to have meaningful interactions, we would think that was a bit crazy, right? So I was walking around anywhere in the world. I can talk to my friends and family on my phone and see them, and they can see me, providing the signal's good.
But I think if you like nowadays, if I go back, I'm a movie lover, for example, right? I think we all love movies, and there's a lot of movies that come to mind right now that, when you think about it, it's actually the future coming true. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, there were not much movies that talk about now, but it's all about, imagination and creation. But now, everything we've seen in the past 10 years, from Timer or Gamer, or a couple of other movies like Matrix, for example, you feel like we're actually living it to a certain extent. Would you agree?
When Iron Man first came out, if you remember that there's scenes in it where he's in his lab and he's interacting with
touch screens and just with the air. Yeah.
With glasses on, and my son was next to me. He's 25 now, and my daughter's 24. They were a bit younger, and he goes, "That's amazing." I said, "It's coming," and to a degree, it's here. So I see this happening in huge applications. We talk about our impact as individuals, our health and wellness. Medicine is already being tremendously impacted by this. Our ability to interact with our environment is becoming impacted by this. To design our environments is being impacted by this.
If I want you to advise our audience, Jonscott, if I want you to give an advice to our audience who don't really embrace change as much as everyone else, there's always resistance, right? Regardless of the reasons why.
Human beings don't like change. One of the behavioral realities I deal with clients all the time is that, words are easy, right? Words, you can say whatever you want. And the reason why my new company is called Web3 Impact is because until you take action, until you take risk, nothing will change. And if you wait around for things to change, for example, I still have friends who, I remember in 2008 or 9, it was later than I thought it would be. A good friend of mine and CEO of a company I worked with, he didn't want to carry a smartphone with him. He did not want to be tied to a phone and a device. He took one when he went internationally to stay connected, but when he was in the office in New York City at the time, he did not want to have to check another device for email. He thought it was intrusive. We laugh about this now, but that's not ancient history. It's pretty recent. And again, the pace of change is accelerating. The amount of information we create as human beings today is accelerating. The amount of information uploaded is accelerating. So we're going to be working with AI in terms of how we are consuming data. The algorithms are getting far more sophisticated on a day-by-day basis. The ways in which we interact. Interestingly, you mentioned the Matrix, and I think gamers and the gaming community has been creating alternate realities for many, many years.
And this is what we're living right now. It's basically the alternate reality, which was a fiction, which is now reality. Thank you so much, Jonscott Turco. Really appreciate your time with us in the studio. And we would like to know more about Web3 Impact, hopefully in the future in one of our other episodes. Thank you, Jonscott.
Happy to discuss it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.